This series of 5 videos is brought to you by the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. This is how our parliamentary system in South Africa works.
27 April 1994 was a very important day in our history. For the first time, all South Africans 18 years and older could vote in a free election for the political parties they wanted to represent them in the national parliament and provincial legislatures. In the Western Cape, we call it the Provincial Parliament. Zubeida, a teacher, Aubrey, a bus driver, and Funeka, a member of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, voted in the elections. Johan, a tour operator, and Sindiswa, a student, were too young to vote in the elections. You must be 18 years or older to vote in the elections. In this series of videos, we will explain to you what our provincial parliament does through the eyes of Zubeida, Aubrey, Funeka, Sindiswa, and Johan. South Africa has 3 levels of government: national, provincial, and local. Elections for the national and provincial representatives are held at the same time every 5 years. In between, there are elections for local government. Then South Africans vote for people who will represent them in their local communities, towns, and cities. These elections must also be held every 5 years. The National Parliament meets in Cape Town, the provincial legislatures in their respective provinces, and local government councils in the cities and communities they represent. The Western Cape Provincial Parliament meets in this building in Cape Town. Funeka is a member of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and is one of your elected representatives. South Africans choose their representatives according to a system of proportional representation. It works like this. If a party gets 60% of the votes in an election and there are 100 seats or members, 60 of the seats will go to that political party. The party which gets 20% will have 20 members in parliament, and the party with 3% will have 3. It is a very fair system. We have elections every 5 years when South Africans over the age of 18 can vote for the political parties they want to represent them in the national and provincial parliaments. When you walk into the election station or polling booth, where you are registered to vote, you get 2 pieces of paper, also called ballots, with all the political parties listed. The one ballot will have a list of the parties you can choose from at the national level, and the other ballot, a list of parties for the provincial level, the legislature. You can only choose one party for the national parliament and one for the provincial legislature. And that's how Funeka became one of your elected representatives in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Her party received a high enough percentage of the votes so that it could send members to the provincial parliament. Funeka is one of them. But once chosen, she now represents all the people in the Western Cape in the legislature, irrespective of the political party they voted for.
Now that you know how our parliamentary system works, let's see how the provincial parliament is made up.
Today is a very important day for Funeka. The party she represents did well in the elections and can now send several of its members to parliament. To become a member, she must first be sworn in. That always happens on the first day the new parliament convenes. It's normally a judge who swears in members of parliament. Once members are sworn in, the parliament chooses a speaker and deputy speaker. For both speaker and deputy speaker, any member of parliament can nominate candidates and a vote takes place. The speaker can be anybody, but is almost always a representative from the party with the most seats in the parliament. Now that there is a speaker, parliament can get on with the business of choosing a premier for the province. After nominations, members of parliament vote. It's normally the candidates from the party with the most representatives who is chosen as premier. The Premier and the party he represents will now be the government. Members of the other political parties represented in Parliament will make up the opposition. The Premier will now appoint ministers for the different government departments. Ministers are chosen from members of Parliament. This is the executive team that will be responsible for the day-to-day running of the province. The Premier and ministers are responsible to ensure that laws made by the provincial parliament are implemented and that the province is managed properly. They do this through the different provincial government departments and the civil servants who work there. Typically, these departments could be finance and economic development, community safety, education, housing, agriculture, transport, and others. For each department, there is an appointed parliamentary committee to oversee their work. The committees are made up of members of parliament like Funeka. She sits on the Transport Committee. The heads of the different departments must appear regularly before their committee to report on the work they are doing. This is called the oversight role of Parliament. It is how our elected representatives make sure the province is managed properly and is delivering services in accordance with the laws and regulations. For Funeka, this is important work. She is, after all, a representative of the citizens of the province. They chose her to be their voice and to represent them in Parliament.
In the next video, we show you how laws are made.
One of the most important tasks of a provincial parliament is to make the laws through which the province is managed. Parliament can also make changes to the existing laws. Equally important for the Parliament is to make sure the laws are implemented correctly and fairly. The laws that the Western Cape Provincial Parliament makes will apply to all who live in the province, who work here, or are just visiting. Let's use Aubrey as an example. He drives a bus in the Cape Town area. There are general provincial laws that he must abide by, like getting a bus driver's license. City regulations made in line with provincial laws regulate where he can operate, where he can pick up passengers and drop them off. So how are provincial laws made? The first thing to remember is that the laws of the country are supreme. No law can be made in a province, including the Western Cape, that goes against a national law. With that distinction, the processes at national and provincial level to make laws are pretty much the same. Let's say the provincial parliament wants to make a law that will restrict buses of a certain size from using provincial roads during certain times of day. This is something that will impact Aubrey and other drivers like him. Sindiswa takes a bus to university, so the law might also impact him. Laws normally start with an investigation. An issue might be brought to Parliament's attention through one of the representatives in Parliament. These can be brought by members of the public, by officials, or by members of Parliament. Once the issue is brought before Parliament, a commission consisting of members of different political parties is formed to investigate. Based on the investigation, a report is written, which can suggest that an existing law be amended or a new law be made. Now the law or the suggested amendments must be written. Once written, the law is tabled in Parliament, where it is read for the first time. Most new laws or amendments are then sent back to a committee for further investigation and public hearings. Because this amendment to an existing law will impact Aubrey directly, he is in Parliament today to give his input. After the input is considered and changes made to the initial amendments or new law, it is sent back to Parliament, where it is read for a second time. The law is then debated by members of Parliament. After the debate, they vote. A simple majority voting in favor of the law or amendment means the law is accepted. It is signed by the Premier, published, and becomes law. It must now be implemented by officials of the relevant government department. If a majority of members vote against it, the law is rejected.
Ever wondered what a typical week in the life of a parliamentarian looks like?
As a member of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, Funega's days are often quite busy. Every day is different. So let's rather have a look at what her typical week looks like. As a Member of Parliament, Funega represents the Beto constituency. That's about 6 hours drive from Cape Town. She normally visits there every second weekend. Funega leaves home early Saturday morning to meet with constituents, a smart word for the people and organizations in Beto, on Saturday afternoon and on Sunday. This is her time to speak to the people she represents in person about the issues or suggestions they might have. On Monday, she travels back to Cape Town. The time on the road gives her the opportunity to prepare for the meetings that will follow at Parliament in Cape Town. She also uses the time to call her family and keep in touch with friends. Monday night, after stopping for fast food along the way, she sleeps at home, where her husband and 2-year-old boy are very happy to see her. On Tuesday morning, she's up early. After taking the dog for a walk, she drops her son off at creche. She arrives at Parliament just in time for the standing committee meetings, which starts at 8:30. You have to be prepared for the committee meetings, and that means having to read through pages and pages of reports. But the most important role of these committees, and one which Funega is passionate about, is public participation. The committees often go out into communities to find out what they think about new legislation. Wednesday looks much like Tuesday for Funega. She makes time to go through her messages, emails, and voice notes. It's important to her to be responsive to the people she represents. On Thursday, Parliament sits. The day starts early when the different political parties meet, called caucus meetings, to discuss their views on issues to be discussed in Parliament that day. On any day in Parliament, Funega could be asked to state her party's view on a piece of legislation or vote on it. Parliament normally sits to about 7 in the evening. Despite her being in Parliament, the messages from constituents don't stop coming in. If you are a representative of the people, your work never stops. It takes careful planning to make sure you can represent your constituents in Parliament, attend community meetings, and make time to spend with your family.
This is your Parliament. So how do you get involved?
A successful government is a government in which citizens get involved. Democracy is built upon that principle. We would like to think that the Western Cape Provincial Parliament is the kind of parliament where you, Aubrey, Sindiswa, Johan, and Zubeida can approach Funega as your elected representative with any issue regarding the government of the province. There are many ways to get involved. The most obvious is to visit the Parliament. Anybody can visit and observe the debates and see Parliament in action. We encourage you to visit, especially if a piece of legislation you feel strongly about is debated. Another way to get involved is to attend the public hearings we arrange to give you a voice into new legislation. We often have hearings in communities to make it easier for people to attend. If you want your voice heard, you should be in the meeting. Your opinion is important. The Parliament arranges special events where we take the Parliament to the people. We advertise these ahead of time. It's a great opportunity for you to meet members of Parliament and to find out more about what Parliament does. And yes, we have embraced social media. The Parliament has a Facebook page and a Twitter account. We also have a YouTube channel where we live stream our sittings and committee meetings. You can also visit our website at wcpp.gov.za. There are various ways for you to get in touch with us, and you will find the information on our site. It's your Parliament. Please take every opportunity to engage with us.
This video was brought to you by the Western Cape Provincial Parliament.